The following program is a production of Pioneer Public Television.
Welcome to another special episode of Compass as we celebrate the great American read in cooperation with PBS. I'm Les Heen. As part of this PBS outreach, we are celebrating the stories of local authors and people who love to read. Later in our show today, we'll have the story of a local mystery writer. But first, the story of a very small library at a small town school. With us now to talk about that story is Heidi Zachariasen. Heidi is the principal of Milroy Area Schools in Milroy, Minnesota. Heidi, thanks for coming to Compass.
Thank you for having me.
For our viewers who maybe aren't as familiar with Southwest Minnesota, tell us about the town of Milroy and about your school.
Milroy is a small town, and we're very near Marshall. So we have just under 80 students in our whole school, pre-K through 8.
So small school, small town, and of course, one of the reasons why I was interested in the story of Milroy and of the school is because you established a little library. And we should mention, of course, for people who aren't familiar with it, little libraries have popped up all over. Sometimes they're in someone's front yard. Sometimes they're at a small town cafe. But it's really a way for people to share books in an informal way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I have 2 little girls myself, and they're always excited to see them. And we've even seen them in convenience stores. So we're on a road trip. It's kind of fun to have a book to read.
Yeah, and we got some video that we shot last fall that I know we'll be showing here in just a moment. Video of the little library that you've set up, because it looks like many others that you might see in someone's front yard or in other places. But in the case of your little library, it was different because it was in dedication to a teacher.
Yeah, we had a teacher that really instilled a love of reading in our students, and she unfortunately passed away, but one thing that we wanted to do to remember her was to continue that love of reading. And so that's why we have a brightly colored little library, and it was chevron because that was her favorite pattern. She had chevron everything in her room. So we have this little library, and the kids come in there and they check out books, or they just take them and return them when they're done. And it's a lot of fun because we had some books that were donated in memory of Ms. Kopacek as well. And
one of the benefits, I think, for people who perhaps haven't seen little libraries like this is that people can come sort of any time, day or night. They can stop by. They don't have to worry about when a school is open. They can come by, and it can change from day to day because people maybe are dropping off a book or taking away a book. Isn't that true?
Yeah, yep. It's open 24 hours a day. so yeah, anytime. And in the summer or whatever the kids are doing, if there's a baseball game going on, or they're just on a walk or on a bike ride or going to school, they can always grab a new book.
And I know the library is right by the front entrance to the Milroy School, so if you come in on the highway and you pull off a Prospect Street, it's right there, very easy to find. It's not as if it's hidden because it's right out there for everyone to use.
Right, yep.
Yeah. I know when we visited and we spoke to one of the students there, it was Caitlin was her name, and I know Caitlin was there with you, and we interviewed Caitlin that day with you, and we'd like to share some of that interview that we did that day right now.
I hope that it will encourage more people to read, because what's really hard, I think, for a lot of people is finding the right kind of book. I know that's hard for my younger brother, Sam. He likes reading and he will read. He just needs the right kind of book.
So in addition to that interview with Caitlin, of course, we took a lot of other video that day, and we stopped in Milroy to do this recording. It was in September of 2017. And I know you were there, as we just saw in that video, and the students were milling about, and it was the first week of school, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was the Friday of our first week, so I remember thinking, well, this could be interesting. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, what we did not know is what was going to happen just a few days after we left. And it was very unusual. So tell us what happened right after we shot this video.
Yes, one of our students who was in the 6th grade class passed away that Sunday night just in her sleep. So this was actually her last day of school. But the cool thing is that her last day was a blast. And I remember her being so excited, and she said, "What? Do you mean I'm gonna be on TV?" I said, "Yeah, Brooklyn, it's TV. They have a camera." She's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna be a movie star." So she was just so excited and really had a really special day with this.
Yeah, because of course, now it was, of course, the library was set up as a memorial to the teacher, and so we had no idea, of course, when we were there that this loss, this sudden unexpected loss would happen right there. But of course, as you said, and we have video of her, she was happy, she was bubbly, she was enjoying it. So I'm glad that we were able to, at least capture some of those moments of her as a student, sharing and enjoying the library as it was meant to be shared.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it was a good experience, I think, for for people to see the little library and to start to use it, because you also said that when we were there, the library really hadn't been in place that long, had it?
No, we had just recently gotten it up, and so it gave us a good opportunity too for the kids to help change the books and take care of it and get ready. So they were really excited about it.
Yeah, and so did the children have they actually helped you decide what sort of books to put in it and how they share? And
yeah, we have a little collection of books that we kind of swap out, and that's been really helpful because it keeps things fresh.
Sure. And for people who haven't yet established a little library, or they're thinking, "Oh, this sounds like something I'd like to do in my small town," what advice would you have for them?
Well, my advice would be to involve kids or involve readers if you can. In our case, it's primarily kids. We do have adult books, but when they get to choose and they get to see new books go in there and they start talking about it, it helps it become something that the kids are more drawn to and thinking about and excited about, and when it has a story and a purpose.
And one of the things I know that I noticed, I should say, in the video is when we had the little library set up, you see kids come out and they're grabbing books and then they go to the school bus.
Yeah.
So if one of the last things that they have when they leave school is a library, is that another thing you think it's a great thing to say, "Oh, I want to grab a book because I want to read this weekend or tonight"?
Yeah, and it's always something they walk by. So it's every day to and from school. So it's always a reminder to grab a book.
And of course, when you have that small space, I suppose you can kind of see every book in that small space very quickly. So is it important for people who want to do a shared library to continually rotate what's in there so that there's always some sense that it's new and fresh and it's different?
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And the kids notice it and something catches their eye.
Yeah. Any favorite books that you've seen as you've been looking at that book collection and looking at that little library? Any favorites that you or the kids have seen?
Let's see. Gosh, there's a lot of them, but I know like Frindle has been kind of a fun one for the older kids, and for some of the younger kids, we've had some Dr. Seuss books, and those are so fun for kids who are just starting to read.
Well, and I remember when I was looking at some of the video, I saw that there were, in the library itself, inside there were stories like the Boxcar Children.
Yeah.
So there's so many classics, because I expect a lot of people would like to connect with classics that they might remember reading as a child.
Yes, and those are actually stories that Miss Kopacek read to her class. So that was always our trouble with Miss Kopacek, was we had tried to find a book that the whole school could read, and then we'd have to say, "Miss Kopacek, what book haven't you read to your class?" And then we'll pick from those.
Oh, sure, because she had encouraged reading so much that she had covered a lot of ground, I suppose.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also knew it very well. So because you knew Shannon Kopacek well, what do you think she would think of the way the library has evolved over the past year and a half?
I think she'd love the look of the chevron, and I think that she would be encouraged to see her kids reading.
Yeah, encouraged to see her kids reading, and of course, how many students, again, if you look at sort of the age groups that are using it most, how many students do you think use it on a regular basis?
I think it kind of goes in spurts, and depending what books are in there, But yeah, I think quite a few of our kids use it on a regular basis.
Yeah. So just a great way to encourage reading and encourage families. Do you see families coming in with kids as well to use the library, this little library?
Sometimes on their way into school, yeah.
Okay, so well, either on the way to school or perhaps even when they're leaving school, they would pick up a kid and come
Yep.
grab a book.
Yep. Or in the summer at summer, like baseball.
Okay, summer baseball, kids come by from the playground, which is nearby.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it's a great story of I think of a neat memorial to Ms. Kopacek and her love of reading, and of course, and the story of Brooklyn Larson, the fact that we were able to record that we did. So, and of course, we want to add that our sympathies, of course, go out to the family of Brooklyn Larson. We've shared the video with them as well, so that they could have these memories of their daughter.
Yeah.
So, well, it's a neat story of a library, and I want to thank you, Heidi Zachariasen, for coming in and joining us today on Compass.
Well, thank you so much.
And of course, in just a moment, we'll have more stories about books, but first we're going to take a break right now on Compass, and we'll be back with more about books and the Compass Literature Corner in just a few moments.
The list is out and the voting has begun. It's time to select America's favorite book in the Great American Read. Come to the website and see our collection of America's 100 best-loved novels. Is your favorite on the list? Vote for your book, then share your choice so your friends and family can join in. The voting is open now. I'm Meredith Vieira. Help us choose America's favorite book on the Great American Read.
As part of our look at summer reading and the Great American Read, I sat down some time ago with author Anthony Neil Smith of Marshall. Smith has appeared on Compass before with an earlier book in his series of mysteries. This time we sat down to talk about the latest installment in his Castle Danger series. This week, an author returns to the Literature Corner with a new look at characters he introduced to us last season. Anthony Neil Smith of Marshall joins us now for a look at Castle Danger, The Mental States. Neil, thanks for coming back to Compass.
Oh, happy to come back.
Now, we should add for our audience that you are also a professor at Southwest Minnesota State University in Marshall.
Yep.
So you have the challenge of writing and teaching about writing. How does that work for you to be doing novels and teaching at the same time? How does that work?
It's sometimes difficult and sometimes it's great, because the greatest thing about teaching writing is to see the light bulb go on over the student's head when they just go from just confused to I got it, I understand what works. But at the same time, that means that I'm having to read a lot of beginning writers, a lot of works that have flawed with basic mistakes. At the same time, I'm trying to write my own novels.
Yeah.
It's sometimes good for you though, because what you'll see is, I'm using the word just too much, just like the students are, or I'm using too many fragments. So sometimes you'll see things in their work that make you question your own a little bit. But for the most part, it's really rewarding, I think.
Well, and of course, now as you've gone into a second book in this series, and so you had a chance to characters to develop. I was thinking about Castle Danger, Mental States when I looked at the cover, and it said American Crime, Nordic Style. And then as you go into the book, it's Minnesota characters. Tell me about that.
Well, the big craze, I guess, over the past 10 years or so has been Nordic mysteries, which seem to have a very cold, psychologically dark perspective to them. So books written in Norway and Iceland have really taken off with readers across the country, across Europe. But living in Minnesota, well, you do see a lot of Scandinavian and Norwegian sort of traditions, and I just got back from Iceland. I was in Iceland in May, and comparing the landscape sometimes is just you can't help but do that. You can't help it. So I tried to get that landscape as a character in the story, the landscape of Minnesota, the cold, the snow, and how does that work its way into a Minnesota character's brain? How does it really affect their mindsets? So in this case, we have people who are learning about themselves while trying to solve a mystery. while dealing with very harsh winter conditions. What does that all add up to? And so hopefully the reasons that people read Nordic mysteries will be embraced for Minnesota mystery as well.
And the harshness of conditions that characters may be facing, it creates an underlying tension as well, because either they're always cold or they're always struggling something in addition to solving the mystery or solving their personal crisis. There becomes a layer, I think, when I read this, that there's a tension that goes over the top of everything.
I think absolutely. I think that if you just have a mystery or a crime novel where the detective is only interested in solving the mystery, is lacking something. It means they've got it all together in their real lives. I get a little bored with that. I'm not as interested in the character who book after book after book never changes, the detective who never changes. I prefer them to be as troubled as the mystery that they're trying to solve, which I think adds a whole new element and reflects life a lot more clearly than it would if you just have a detective who's just somehow a superhero, which I don't like.
Sure, and since you mentioned detectives, we do have a couple of the major characters in the book, Manny and Joel, are detectives, and they think they're going to be doing one kind of work, and then they end up actually working together, you know, on a mystery. As well as you said, then one of the characters is really trying to figure out his own personal identity.
Oh, absolutely. In the first book, I don't think it's a secret to say that Manny begins as an angry and depressed young man, but through investigating the death of a transsexual woman, starts to realize that's who he is, that he actually is a woman. It's something he had realized younger in his life, but just had sort of pressed down. So at the beginning of the second book, he is dealing with that transition because he's not completely transitioned yet. And yet, at the same time, he's also dealing with transitions in his job because he and Joel were cops in the first book. And let's just say they're not cops anymore.
Right.
If you want to find out why, read The Woman on Ice. And now they're working in an even more dangerous area than I think police work, politics. So,
Yeah, so there's the intrigue of the politics, there's the intrigue of the personal crises, and so they're discovering things in the community or things around them at work in this crime as well as what's going on. So a lot of twists and turns. So as you begin this process, how do you figure out, because mysteries always have great twists and turns, right? How do you figure out the twists and turns? How did you do that?
I am surprised sometimes at the twists and turns I come up with because at the beginning of the process, you want to have a general idea of where it's going. Even though there have been writers I've read, like Ian Rankin, a very popular Scottish writer, says, I don't know who did it until the fourth draft sometimes. And I would like to know a little bit more clearly who did it before then. But if you plan out too far ahead, then you end up not surprising yourself. And the writing is writing to what you've already planned, which can be a little boring. It actually reads a little boring. So I want to be surprised as I'm writing. So sometimes I have to think what feels real or what feels like it would happen rather than the cliched happening. So I would rather be surprised myself as I'm writing than to plan it all out, and because I'm too dumb to write a mystery. I get to the end of a mystery and I say, I had no idea that guy did it. No idea. So they must have kept me going, even though it's in plain sight.
Well, for people who haven't read, let's say, the first book, or they're approaching this one, you mentioned, you know, Rankin, other mystery writers. For a reader, if they read this, who do you think it would remind them of as a mystery writer? Other writers that you know.
Oh, that's tough. I try to write different books every time, even though I grew up on like the really hard-boiled writers like James Ellroy, who writes massive political and criminal novels. I'm a big fan of Minnesota's own John Sanford, who also I think writes just a wonderful style, easy to read. But there are some others you might see, I would hope, would be writers like Chester Himes and Walter Mosley, who are both black crime writers that I love. Chester Himes wrote some of the craziest crime novels I've ever read back in the 50s, and Walter Mosley's still writing great ones. And one who's not a crime writer, but I hope that really dark humor comes through in everything that I write the same way as her writing, was Flannery O'Connor. Flannery O'Connor's work really inspired me because it was also one of these where she actually said one time, for the blind, you have to draw in these wild, vibrant pictures, and for the deaf, you have to scream louder, yell louder, and that's how she described her own work. And I would say with crime novels, they're sort of hyper-real. You take the real world, but then it's louder. It's more vivid. It's more dangerous than you would get if you were just reading, a normal literary novel.
So everything becomes amplified.
Oh, absolutely.
In crime novels. And we only have a couple minutes left, Neil, so I just want to talk about, again, this is the latest in a saga of books, but if people want to find your work, what's the best way to find your work?
It would be online because these two books in particular are ebooks only, so it's kind of like an old pulp tradition, the ebook only, kind of like the old paperback only. So you can find them on Amazon easily or any of your favorite online bookstores as well, or go to beebooks.com, which is the actual publisher, where they have it there as well.
Okay. And again, the latest book in this installment is Castle Danger, The Mental States. So it's fun. Thank you for joining us again on Compass. It's great to have you back.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. And that's it for us this week in the Literature Corner. Please tune in next week for more people, places, and issues facing our viewing area. I'm Pioneer's Les Heen. Thanks for watching Compass. And to close out this episode of Compass, here's a little bit of Pioneer's Grassland Jam.
Wake up, wake up from one bad, bad dream. My love, you've been trying to kill me. Heart keeps beating when it's broken. Heartache, heartbreak. Let go was spoken. All left out in the cold.